The quantum sensors aboard the Galactic Council's central station screamed to life as space itself tore open, bleeding iridescent light across the void. Council member Zarek pressed his four-fingered hands against the observation deck's transparent alloy, watching as the impossible happened. A massive vessel, angular and scurried, pushed through the dimensional breach like a leviathan breaking the ocean's surface. Classification impossible, announced the station's artificial intelligence. Hull composition contains elements not present in known space. Zarek's secondary heart began beating faster as the vessel's size became apparent. At nearly 4 kilometers long, it dwarfed the Council's largest ships. Its hull bore the marks of battles, some patches gleaming with newer metals while others remained scorched and pitted. Most disturbing were the areas that seemed to shift and blur, as if they existed partially in another dimension. "This is the TNS Hyperion." A calm human voice broadcast across all frequencies. Captain Emma Stone commanding. "We come with urgent news and a warning." The council chamber erupted in chaos. Humans weren't supposed to have this level of technology. Their civilization had only achieved faster-than-light travel 30 years ago. Yet here they were, commanding a vessel that violated dozens of known physics laws. "Security fleet is moving to intercept," reported Admiral Ventax of the Council Defense Force. The sleek, crystalline ships of the Council's finest surrounded the human vessel. Weapons primed. "Wait," Zarek called out, his violet skin shifting colors with agitation. "Look at their weapon ports. They remain closed. And those scars, they're from weapons we've never seen before." Captain Stone's image appeared on the Council's main display. Her uniform was non-standard, missing the usual human Federation insignia. Instead, she wore patches that seemed to shimmer with quantum uncertainty. Her face bore the same hardness Zarek had seen in veterans of the spiral arm conflicts. "My crew and I have violated several temporal protocols to reach this point," Stone announced. "We can prove our intentions, but time is critical. We've detected a threat approaching Council space, one that destroyed our timeline's version of this station exactly 3 days from now." The Council members buzzed with dismissal and outrage. Temporal violation was the highest crime under Council law. But Zarek noticed something they didn't. Subtle gravitational distortions around the Hyperion matched theoretical patterns of time dilation. "Show us," Zarek said, silencing the chamber. As diplomatic advisor, he had limited authority, but his species' natural ability to detect deception made others trust his judgment. The Hyperion sensors painted a horrifying picture. Something massive approached from intergalactic space, cloaked from normal detection methods. The human chip's quantum arrays showed the truth, a swarm of entities that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, consuming everything in their path. "Impossible," Admiral Ventax declared. "Our sensor networks are the most advanced in known space. We would have detected." "Your sensors only scan in 4 dimensions," interrupted Lieutenant Commander Marcus Rodriguez, the Hyperion's science officer. "These entities exist in 11. We learned to detect them too late in our timeline. This ship represents humanity's last effort to prevent that future." Zarek studied the human vessel more carefully now. Its design incorporated technology he'd never seen: probability drives, quantum armor that adapted to attacks, and weapons that could strike across dimensional boundaries. This wasn't just a warship. It was a desperate masterpiece built by a civilization facing extinction. "The Council requires proof beyond sensor data," announced High Chancellor Ixtil. "We cannot take action based on the word of primitives." Captain Stone's expression remained neutral, but her eyes hardened. "You'll have your proof in 6 hours when they consume mining station Delta 17. We'll transmit our tactical data and remain at your coordinates until then." Stone out. As the transmission ended, Zarek noticed something in the captain's quarters behind her. A council flag, burned and battered, displayed with honor. He realized he was looking at his own gift to the humans, one he hadn't given yet in this timeline. The massive human vessel hung in space, a dark prophet of destruction, while the council argued about protocols and procedures. Only Zarek understood the truth. Humanity had done something both brilliant and terrible. They had broken time itself to save a council that had once rejected them. Now they waited, knowing exactly when and where death would arrive, carrying the weight of a future they hoped to prevent. 6 hours passed like a dying star's final moments. Mining Station Delta 17 transmitted its last routine status update, then vanished in a flash of trans-dimensional energy. The council chamber fell silent as the Hyperion's prediction proved horrifyingly accurate. "Playback tactical recording," Captain Stone commanded, her image now displayed on every screen in the chamber. Time index, original timeline, Delta 17 incident. The recording showed the same station, the same attack, but with a crucial difference. In that timeline, thousands of escape pods launched. Every single one was consumed by entities that appeared as crystalline fractals, existing in multiple dimensions at once. The council members watched their people die twice across 2 timelines. "We lost 8 billion citizens before we understood what we were fighting," Stone explained, her voice carrying the weight of memories that hadn't happened yet. "The entities exist primarily in dimensions 9 through 11, making them nearly invisible to conventional sensors. We developed quantum detection, arrays too late to save Earth." Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez stepped into view, holding what appeared to be a simple metal sphere. "This is a quantum resonance probe. It will confirm everything we've told you." He pressed a button, and the sphere floated to the center of the council chamber. The device activated, projecting a holographic display of local space. Tiny dots of red light appeared, moving steadily toward council territory. Each dot represented an entity capable of consuming a planet. "My God," whispered High Chancellor Ixtil, using the human expression without realizing it. "There are thousands. In our timeline, the council voted to dismiss our warning." Stone continued. "Protocol dictated that primitive species couldn't be trusted with strategic information. That vote condemned trillions to death." Zarek moved closer to the projection, his diplomatic training forgotten as he counted the approaching swarm. The council's defense fleet wouldn't last 5 minutes against these numbers, even if we mobilized every ship in known space. "Conventional weapons are useless," Rodriguez confirmed. "The entities phase shift between dimensions when attacked. That's why we built the Hyperion. Its quantum core can lock them into our dimensional plane, making them vulnerable." The ship's design made sense now. Those strange blur patterns in its hull weren't battle damage. They were intentional quantum uncertainty zones, allowing the vessel to exist partially in the same dimensional plane as the entities. Captain Stone's expression softened slightly. "We're not here to blame or condemn. Earth, what's left of it, voted to send us back, to try again. The Hyperion can't save everyone alone, but together, we might have a chance." "The temporal violation laws exist for a reason," protested Council Member Kelnar. "If we accept their help, we legitimize. The laws won't matter when we're all dead," Zarek interrupted. "Captain Stone, what do you need from us?" The human captain pressed a button, and a new hologram appeared. Technical specifications for quantum detection arrays that could be fitted to council vessels. "We start by giving you eyes to see the threat. Then we teach you to fight back." Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez added, "The Hyperion carries enough quantum core material to outfit 20 ships. We'll lead your engineers to help replicate the technology quickly." The council chamber erupted in overlapping arguments. Some demanded immediate action, others called for Stone's arrest. The debate ended when Zarek played his final card. "Look at their eyes," he commanded. "Every human on that ship has witnessed the end of civilization. They violated their own temporal laws, knowing they'd face judgment, because they believed we were worth saving, even after we rejected them." The chamber fell silent again. Captain Stone stood straighter, the weight of command visible in her bearing. "We have 48 hours before the first major attack. Every minute we spend debating is one less minute to prepare. The Hyperion stands ready to assist, or to fight alone if we must. The choice is yours." High Chancellor Ixtal rose slowly, his age showing in every movement. The Council recognizes the emergency and suspends temporal violation protocols for the duration of this crisis. Captain Stone, you have our cooperation. As the Council members dispersed to begin preparations, Zarek noticed something in Stone's expression. Not relief, but grim determination. She had lived this moment before, in another timeline. He realized they were no longer writing the future. They were rewriting it. The Council's primary shipyard hummed with frantic activity as engineers worked to install quantum detection arrays. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez supervised the modifications, his hands moving with practiced efficiency as he demonstrated the calibration sequence to a team of alien technicians. The entities register as dimensional shadows on standard sensors, he explained, pointing to a shifting pattern on the display. But with these modifications, you'll see them as clearly as. The alarm cut through his explanation. On the newly modified sensors, a massive contact appeared at the edge of Council space. The entity dwarfed the one that had consumed mining station Delta 17. Captain Stone's voice crackled through the emergency channel. All ships, battle stations. This is the Beta swarm. In our timeline, it destroyed the Centauri colonies in under 6 hours. The Hyperion moved to intercept, its massive form rippling with quantum distortions. Behind it, 20 newly modified Council vessels formed up in an attack pattern that barely had time to practice. Remember your training. Stone broadcast. Stay in your designated quantum phases. If you slip out of alignment, the entities will see you as normal matter. Food. Zarek watched from the command center as the fleet engaged. The entity shifted between dimensions, its crystalline form bleeding colors that shouldn't exist in normal space. The Hyperion fired its main quantum lance, the beam existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The entity screamed in frequencies that shattered sensors. Part of its mass boiled away into quantum foam, but it pressed forward, launching smaller fragments toward the Council ships. Evasive pattern Delta. Rodriguez shouted, "Don't let them touch your hulls." A Valerian cruiser moved too slowly. A crystal shard phased through its shields and touched the hull. The entire ship vanished, transformed into exotic matter that quickly dissipated into higher dimensions. 800 crew, Zarek whispered. Gone in seconds. Stone's voice remained steady. All ships focus fire on coordinates being transmitted. That's its primary mass center in the 9th dimension. Hit it there, and the combined fire of 20 quantum-modified weapons struck the entity. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then reality itself cracked around the impact point. The entity's crystalline form shattered, its fragments dispersing across multiple dimensions. First blood, Stone announced, but the real swarm is still coming. This was just a scout. In the following hours, the Council experienced a fundamental shift in understanding. Their mighty civilization, built over millennia, had been operating with a limited view of reality. The humans, despite their primitive status, had seen the bigger picture. Rodriguez worked tirelessly, modifying more ships as they arrived at the shipyard. Each vessel's crew had to learn to perceive and operate in multiple dimensions, a task that drove some to the edge of sanity. Your minds aren't used to processing 11-dimensional space, he explained to a shaken crew. The nausea and disorientation will pass. Those who can't adapt will be reassigned to conventional ships. The Hyperion sensors continued tracking the main swarm's approach. The massive vessel had taken position at the forward defense line, its quantum core pulsing with enough energy to distort nearby space. Captain Stone called a final briefing. The Council chamber, now equipped with quantum displays, showed the true scope of what approached. The swarm stretched across multiple dimensional planes, its full mass impossible to comprehend in normal space. In our timeline, this was the beginning of the end, Stone said, her voice heavy with memory. We've changed enough variables that the future isn't certain anymore, but the math is still against us. Even with the modified ships, we're outnumbered thousands to one. Zarek studied the tactical display, his diplomatic training helping him see patterns others might miss. The swarm's movement isn't random. They're being driven by something. We never lived long enough to figure that out in our timeline, Rodriguez admitted. Whatever's pushing them forward must be worse than what they do to us. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. These entities, capable of consuming entire worlds, were running from something. Stone stood at the central display, her uniform showing signs of the endless hours she'd worked. We have 12 hours before the main swarm arrives. Every ship that can be modified has been modified. Every crew that can be trained has been trained. She looked at the assembled council members and fleet commanders. Now we find out if humanity's sacrifice was worth it. If changing history cost us our world in one timeline to save all worlds in another. The quantum sensors blinked in warning. The storm was gathering strength. The first wave of the swarm arrived like a cascading fractal of destruction, splitting reality into shimmering fragments. The Hyperion led the defense fleet, its quantum core thrumming with enough power to distort light around its hull. All ships, execute Battle Plan Theta, Captain Stone commanded. Remember your training. Stay in quantum sync with your designated partners. If you drift out of phase, you're dead. The Council fleet, now modified with human technology, moved in perfect formation. Each ship existed partially in higher dimensions, their weapons calibrated to strike across dimensional boundaries. The sight would have driven observers mad just weeks ago. Now it was their only hope for survival. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez's voice cut through the command channel. Multiple entities engaging. Largest mass concentrations at coordinates being transmitted. Watch for dimensional shearing. The battle erupted across 11 dimensions simultaneously. The Hyperion's main quantum lance pierced the dimensional barrier, striking an entity that appeared as a twisted crystal mountain in normal space. The creature's death scream resonated across multiple realities, shattering nearby space into quantum foam. Direct hit, Stone reported. But we've got hundreds more incoming. Council ships. Form up on our flanks. Don't let them surround you. A Nexarian battlecruiser, newly equipped with quantum weapons, scored a killing blow against a smaller entity. The victory was short-lived. 3 crystalline forms phased through space and emerged behind the vessel. Nexarian ship, emergency phase shift. Rodriguez shouted. They're trying to. The battlecruiser vanished, its atomic structure converted into exotic matter and scattered across higher dimensions. 2,000 crew members erased from existence in an instant. Stone's voice remained steady. Close the gap. Don't let them exploit the breach. Hyperion moving to Sector 7. The massive human vessel turned with impossible grace, its quantum drive allowing it to exist in multiple positions simultaneously. Energy weapons lashed out, their beams crossing dimensional boundaries to strike the entity's vulnerable cores. Captain, Zarek called from the Council Command Center. Long-range sensors show a pattern. The smaller entities are herding us towards something bigger. Stone studied the tactical display, understanding dawning in her eyes. They're not just attacking randomly. This is a strategy we never saw in our timeline. Rodriguez, full-spectrum scan of Sector 12. The scan revealed a massive dimensional anomaly hiding behind the swarm's front line. A single entity larger than anything they'd encountered, waiting to ambush the fleet once the smaller creatures pushed them back far enough. All ships, Emergency Protocol 9. Stone ordered. Phase shift to 11th dimension on my mark. Rodriguez, prepare the quantum core for overload. Captain, the core breach protocols. Rodriguez started. I know what it'll do to the crew. Execute the order. The Hyperion's quantum core began to pulse with blinding energy. The ship's hull rippled as reality buckled around it. The crew's bodies started aging rapidly as temporal protection failed. Mark. The entire defense fleet shifted into the 11th dimension, just as the massive entity charged. For a split second, they occupied the same dimensional space as their attackers. The Hyperion's quantum core detonated in a controlled breach. Pure chaos erupted across all dimensions. The massive entity screamed as quantum fire burned through its crystalline form. Smaller entities caught in the blast radius shattered into dimensional shards. The defense fleet barely phased back to normal space in time to avoid destruction. When reality stabilized, a quarter of the swarm lay dead or dying. The massive entity retreated, leaving crystalline fragments scattered across spacetime. Damage report. Stone called, her voice showing strain. The quantum core breach had aged her 10 years in seconds. 8 council ships lost. Rodriguez reported, his own hair now streaked with gray. But we killed more of them than any battle in our original timeline. The quantum core is stabilizing, but half the crew shows severe temporal damage. Zarek stared at the tactical display in awe. The human vessel had just changed the rules of dimensional warfare. The Council's most advanced scientists had never imagined such tactics were possible. They'll be back, Stone announced, standing despite her rapidly aged body. But now they know we can hurt them. More importantly, they know we can see their strategies. The real question is, what are they running from that makes them desperate enough to fight this hard? The defense fleet regrouped around the Hyperion, its crew forever changed by their brush with dimensional forces. They had won their first major battle, but the war was far from over. And somewhere out there, something hunted the hunters. The Hyperion's medical bay buzzed with activity as doctors treated crews affected by quantum exposure. Captain Stone sat on an examination table, her once dark hair now streaked with silver, watching as Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez briefed the Council's science team. The quantum core's breach aged most of our crew between 8 and 15 years, Rodriguez explained, his own face showing new lines. But it proved our theory. The entities can be hurt if we fight them in their own dimensional space. Zarek studied the medical readouts with growing concern. The temporal damage to your bodies. It's not reversible, is it? No, Stone answered, standing despite the doctor's protests. Every time we push the quantum core past safety limits, it burns away years of our lives. That's why we need to transfer our knowledge to your crews quickly. We won't survive many more battles like that. The Council's premier scientific vessel, the Stellar Wisdom, docked with the Hyperion to begin the knowledge transfer. Chief Scientist Vextor examined the quantum core with multiple sensory appendages, his species' natural ability to perceive quantum states making him ideal for the task. Fascinating, he hummed. You've created a controlled dimensional breach. The mathematical principles alone should be impossible for your species to grasp. Rodriguez managed a tired smile. Amazing what humans can learn when the alternative is extinction. Watch this part carefully. The core's quantum harmonics have to be perfectly calibrated, or it'll tear the ship apart. In the ship's training center, veteran crew members worked with Council pilots. The humans' bodies showed varying degrees of temporal damage. Gray hair, aged skin, worn joints. Yet they pushed on, determined to pass on everything they knew. The entities exist primarily in dimensions 9 through 11, explained Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, her once young face now showing 4 decades of age. But they feed across all dimensional boundaries. That's why conventional weapons fail. You're only hitting a fraction of their total mass. A Nexarian pilot raised his appendage. The dimensional shifts during battle. They cause severe mental disorientation. How do you maintain combat effectiveness? We don't, Mitchell admitted. Every shift damages our minds a little. Some crew members wash out, their sanity fractured by exposure to higher dimensions. We keep fighting anyway. The alternative is watching everyone we love die again. In the engineering section, Rodriguez worked with Council technicians to replicate the quantum core technology. The Hyperion's original blueprints displayed on massive screens, showing modifications made across multiple timelines. Each version of the ship taught us something new, he explained. The first Hyperion was destroyed when we didn't understand quantum containment. The second burned its crew to ash in seconds. This is version 7, the only one that made it back in time. Zarek watched the knowledge transfer with mixed emotions. The Council had dismissed humanity as primitive barely a month ago. Now these same primitives were teaching them how to fight an enemy they hadn't even known existed. Captain Stone called a briefing in the main conference room. Her uniform hung loosely on her aged frame, but her eyes remained sharp. The entities will return with new tactics. They learn, adapt, and plan. Our victory surprised them, but next time. Warning klaxons cut her off. The quantum sensors detected massive dimensional distortions at the edge of Council space. The tactical display showed hundreds of entities moving in complex formations never seen before. They're evolving their strategies faster than in our timeline, Rodriguez noted. Captain, the quantum core needs at least 12 more hours to reach full power. Stone studied the tactical display, her aged fingers tracing the enemy's movement patterns. Then we fight them with conventional weapons until the core recharges. We've taught the Council ships everything we know. Time to see if they've learned. Zarek touched the captain's shoulder gently. Your crew has already sacrificed decades of their lives. Let our ships take the brunt of this attack. We can. No, Stone interrupted. The Hyperion leads from the front. That's how we earn trust, how we show we're willing to die for what we teach. Besides, she managed a weary smile. We're already living on borrowed time. The massive human vessel moved to battle stations once again, its quantum-scarred hull reflecting the light of nearby stars. Behind it, Council ships formed up in attack formation, their crews now trained in the art of dimensional warfare. The time for teaching was over. Now came the true test of what they'd learned. The battle raged across multiple dimensions, reality itself buckling under the strain. The Hyperion led a defensive formation of Council ships, their quantum-modified weapons striking through dimensional barriers at the approaching swarm. Enemy forces adopting new attack pattern, Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez reported, his aged hands steady on the tactical controls. They're using our own strategies against us. Captain Stone watched as crystalline entities phased between dimensions in perfect synchronization, mimicking the fleet's defensive formations. They're learning faster than in our timeline. All ships, execute Protocol Omega. Show them something they haven't seen yet. The Council fleet split into smaller groups, each taking position around the Hyperion like satellites around a dark star. The human vessel's quantum core pulsed with restrained power, not yet fully recharged from the last battle. Nexarian Battle Group, you have incoming. Stone called out. Remember your training. Phase shift on my mark. The entities struck with crystalline appendages that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The Nexarian ships vanished from normal space seconds before impact, reappearing behind their attackers and opening fire with quantum-enhanced weapons. Direct hits confirmed, reported Commander Vexner of the Nexarian fleet. The humans' tactics work, Captain Stone. We've lost no ships this engagement. The victory was short-lived. A massive dimensional distortion erupted in the battle zone center. Reality twisted as something enormous began pushing through from the higher dimensions. By the Council's wisdom, Zarek breathed, watching from the command center. What is that? The tactical display struggled to represent what emerged, a crystalline structure larger than a solar system, existing across all 11 dimensions simultaneously. Its very presence caused nearby space to fracture and reform. That's their command node, Stone announced, her voice heavy with recognition. We never lived long enough to see it in our timeline. All ships, fall back to. The entity struck first. Dimensional shockwaves rippled out from its crystalline core, shorting out quantum shields and overloading modified sensors. 3 Council ships vanished instantly, their atomic structure scattered across multiple realities. Main weapons offline, Rodriguez reported as the Hyperion shuddered. Quantum core at 30%, still charging. We can't fight that thing yet. Stone's aged face showed no fear, only grim determination. We're not supposed to fight it. We're supposed to understand it. Look at its movement patterns. It's not trying to consume us. It's trying to communicate. The massive entity pulsed with complex quantum signatures, its crystalline structure resonating across dimensional boundaries. Rodriguez's eyes widened as he studied the readings. "Captain, these patterns, they're similar to our quantum core harmonics. They recognize our technology." "Open a channel," Stone ordered. "All frequencies, all dimensions. Send our quantum core signature as a carrier wave." The entity responded immediately. The tactical display filled with 11-dimensional mathematical equations, a language that transcended normal space. Rodriguez worked frantically to decode it. "They're running from something that exists beyond the 11th dimension," he translated. "Something that consumes entire realities. They'd been trying to warn us, but couldn't communicate across the dimensional barrier until they saw our quantum technology." The command node pulsed again, projecting images of entire galaxies being erased from existence. Not just destroyed, completely removed from reality itself, as if they had never existed. The smaller entities, Stone realized. They weren't attacking our worlds. They were trying to move our matter into higher dimensions, to save what they could before it arrives. Zarek's diplomatic training kicked in. "Captain Stone, if what they're showing us is true, we're facing something far worse than dimensional invaders. We're facing the end of reality itself." The Hyperion's quantum core surged unexpectedly, responding to the entity's presence. Reality rippled around the human vessel as new information flooded its databases, technical specifications for weapons and defenses far beyond anything they'd imagined. "They're giving us everything they know," Rodriguez said in awe. "All their dimensional technology, their understanding of higher dimensional space. They want us to fight alongside them." Captain Stone stood on her bridge, her quantum-aged body straight and proud. The enemy they'd fought so hard against had become their only hope for survival. The real war, she realized, was just beginning. "Signal the Council," she ordered. "Tell them we're going to need a bigger quantum core. And a lot more ships." The crystalline entity pulsed in agreement, its massive form synchronized with the Hyperion's core. Humanity's greatest fear had become their strongest ally. Now they just had to save all of reality. The Hyperion's quantum core chamber hummed with unprecedented power. The crystalline entities had modified it using their advanced dimensional technology, turning the human vessel into something that existed simultaneously across all known dimensions. Captain Stone stood before the combined fleet commanders, her quantum-aged body supported by a powered exosuit. The tactical display showed thousands of ships, council, human, and crystalline entity vessels, all linked by the same quantum frequency. "The boundary breach begins in 6 hours," she announced. "The enemy, as our new allies call it, will attempt to enter our reality through a weak point in dimensional space. We have one chance to seal that breach." Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez, his hair now completely white from quantum exposure, manipulated the display. The crystalline entities provided coordinates. "The breach point will occur here, at these dimensional coordinates. All ships must be perfectly synchronized across all 11 dimensions to effect the sealing process." High Commander Vexner's crystalline form pulsed with agreement. The entity now served as liaison between their species and the combined fleet. "Our attempts to seal similar breaches have failed, but your quantum core technology, combined with our dimensional understanding, might succeed where we failed alone." The plan was simultaneously simple and impossibly complex. The Hyperion would lead a charge directly into the dimensional breach, its modified quantum core creating a resonance field that would allow the combined fleet to affect higher dimensional space. "There's something we haven't told you," Stone said, her voice heavy. "Based on the entity's calculations, sealing the breach will create a quantum backflow. Every ship within the resonance field will be erased from this timeline. Will never have existed." Silence fell over the command center. Zarek stepped forward, his diplomatic training helping him grasp the implications. "You're talking about sacrificing 3 fleets to save reality itself. We're talking about giving meaning to every death, every sacrifice across multiple timelines," Rodriguez corrected. "If we succeed, the enemy never breaks through. The crystalline entities never flee into our space. Earth survives. Everyone survives. Stone activated a private channel to the Hyperion's crew. You've already sacrificed years of your lives. Now I'm asking you to sacrifice your very existence. Anyone who wants to transfer to the reserve fleet, now's the time. Not a single crew member moved. The final hours passed in intense preparation. The combined fleet moved into position, their quantum signatures harmonizing across dimensional boundaries. The Hyperion's core pulsed with power that could be seen from light years away. Breach event beginning, Rodriguez reported. Dimensional barriers weakening across all 11 planes. The viewport showed reality itself beginning to tear. Through the widening gap, they caught glimpses of something that defied comprehension. A vast nothingness that consumed everything it touched, erasing matter not just from existence, but from having ever existed at all. All ships, execute final approach, Stone commanded. Quantum cores at maximum power. Phase shift on my mark. The Hyperion led the charge, its hull rippling with dimensional energy. Behind it, council ships and crystalline entities moved in perfect formation, their combined power creating distortions visible across all of reality. The enemy is aware of us, High Commander Vexnor transmitted. It attempts to alter probability itself to prevent our action. Reality flickered around them. Ships vanished and reappeared as the enemy tried to change the past to stop their approach. The quantum cores protected them, keeping them anchored in the present moment. Now, Stone ordered, all ships, phase shift. Rodriguez, initiate core overload. The combined fleet vanished from normal space, reappearing simultaneously across all 11 dimensions. The Hyperion's quantum core screamed as it channeled more power than should have been possible. Captain Stone stood on her bridge, watching as reality bent around them. In that moment, she saw everything. Every timeline, every possibility, every version of history where they had failed and succeeded. Core overload in 10 seconds, Rodriguez reported calmly. It's been an honor, Captain. Stone smiled as the quantum energies began to tear the ship apart. The honor was watching humanity rise above itself. Let's give reality a second chance. The Hyperion's core detonated, creating a cascade of quantum energy that rippled across every dimension. The combined fleet sacrifice created a seal that the enemy could not break. And in that final moment, as they were erased from existence, they won. Reality itself was rewritten, and somewhere, on an Earth that would never know the horror of dimensional war, humanity looked up at the stars and dreamed of exploration rather than survival. The quantum ripple passed through reality like a stone cast into the cosmic pond. In its wake, timelines shifted, merged, and reformed. On a peaceful Earth, in a timeline where the Hyperion never needed to exist, a young scientist named Marcus Rodriguez paused in his work. For a moment, he thought he remembered something. Calculations for quantum cores, designs for dimensional drives, the weight of years that quantum exposure had stolen from his body. But the memory faded like morning mist, leaving only a nagging sense that he'd forgotten something important. In the Galactic Council chambers, diplomatic advisor Zarek addressed the assembly regarding humanity's latest petition for membership. Their advancement in quantum physics is remarkable. They've theorized the existence of 11 dimensions and are developing technology to detect quantum fluctuations across dimensional boundaries. High Chancellor Ixtil studied the reports. Their progress is unprecedented for such a young species. It's almost as if they've done this before. The Council voted unanimously to accept Earth into their ranks. As Zarek prepared the official documentation, he found himself sketching a strange ship design in the margins. Angular, massive, with sections that seemed to blur between dimensions. He couldn't explain why the image felt so familiar. On a remote Council research station, Dr. Emma Stone led a team studying unusual crystal formations discovered in deep space. The structures resonated across multiple quantum frequencies, suggesting an intelligence that existed beyond normal spacetime. These patterns, she explained to her colleagues, they're not random. They're trying to communicate something. Look at how they pulse in 11-dimensional harmony. Her team made breakthrough after breakthrough, advancing the Council's understanding of quantum physics by decades. Sometimes, late at night in her lab, Stone would find herself humming an old Earth naval hymn, though she'd never served in any fleet. The crystal entities, now peaceful explorers of dimensional space, watched the timeline with satisfaction. They alone retain memories of the war that never was, of the sacrifice that rewrote reality. They observed as humanity and the Council rediscovered quantum technology naturally, safely, without the pressure of extinction driving them to desperate measures. In the new timeline's version of the TNS Hyperion's construction bay, engineers built a vessel of peace and exploration rather than desperate warfare. Its quantum core hummed with possibility rather than weapon potential. Captain Stone, young and unburdened by quantum aging, prepared for its maiden voyage. The core's harmonics are perfect, reported Chief Engineer Rodriguez, checking readings that felt hauntingly familiar. Though I keep thinking we should modify the dimensional shielding, and I can't explain why. The ship launched to great celebration, humanity's first true dimensional exploration vessel. As it activated its quantum drives for the first time, reality rippled slightly, an echo of a timeline where this same ship had saved existence itself. In the Council archives, in a section that technically didn't exist, a single data crystal held the true story. The crystalline entities had left it there, encoded in 11-dimensional quantum states that only they could read. It told of humanity's sacrifice, of Captain Stone's courage, of a crew that gave up their very existence to save reality. The crystal pulsed once every year on the anniversary of the breached ceiling, sending quantum echoes across dimensions. In response, humans and Council members alike would pause, feeling a moment of inexplicable gratitude for something they couldn't quite remember. And somewhere, in the quantum foam between dimensions, the consciousness of the Hyperion's crew lived on. Not as individuals, but as patterns in the fabric of reality itself. Their sacrifice had become part of the universal constants, their courage written into the laws of physics. Captain Emma Stone, Lieutenant Commander Marcus Rodriguez, and their crew had rewritten history so completely that their greatest victory would never be known. The empty patch of space where they'd made their final stand pulsed with quantum energy, a memorial that no one would ever visit or understand. In the end, that was their true legacy, not the medals they'd never receive, or the stories that would never be told, but a reality where such sacrifices never needed to be made. A universe where humanity and the Council grew together naturally, where the crystal entities remained peaceful explorers, and where the enemy never breached the walls of existence. Sometimes, the best victories are the ones that leave no trace at all.